Comment below and tell me what's worse. Federal inmates illegally receiving grant money, or 1,000 federal employees, some living in multi-million-dollar homes, collecting grants intended for struggling families. Senator John Kennedy and RFK Jr. exposed the outrageous misuse of taxpayer money inside the Department of Health and Human Services and the National Institutes of Health. Then stick around to the end, where I'm going to cover the top 3 most shocking grant money scandals that you probably haven't heard about yet because it hasn't hit the mainstream news. This is Andy with TrendingPolitics.com. Hit that like and subscribe button, and let's dive in.
Mr. Secretary, how many employees were there at HHS when you took over?
82,000.
How many do you have today?
62,000.
Okay.
It's about the level it was in 2019, right before COVID.
Is this the first time that an institution in America has ever downsized?
I don't think so. I think private and public institutions have historically.
Microsoft just announced that they were going to reduce their workforce by 6,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
Senator, we wouldn't have reduced anybody.
You think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
I don't think so, Senator.
Meta, I still call them Facebook, just announced they're going to reduce their workforce by 3,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Meta?
I imagine it will not.
Yeah. Think maybe the people at Meta know what they're doing?
I think that they do. They make a lot of money, Senator.
Do you hate NIH?
I love NIH. I grew up with NIH. I visited when I was a boy. I loved science, and those were my favorite afternoons, visiting the labs.
Do you hate medical research?
No, I think we need to lead the world in medical research in this country.
In fact, isn't it true, Mr. Secretary, that you would like to see more money spent on medical research?
Obviously, I'm the secretary of this department. No secretary wants to see his budget cut.
Well, one way of doing that, it seems to me, would be to stop some of the stealing. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Let's suppose you give NIH gives a university $100 million to research, for medical research, to research a cure. And that university takes $30 million of it, doesn't spend it on the research. They use it to subsidize the rest of their university. Does that show a commitment to medical research?
No, and I mentioned before the example of Stanford, which was taking 78% in indirect costs, and we don't know what they were spending.
That's theft, isn't it?
It's not a good
in
way to
Louisiana,
spend
we call
federal
that stealing.
taxpayer dollars.
We call that stealing. Is there any doubt in your mind that a lot of universities are taking this NIH money, which is supposed to be spent on medical research, and using it to fund other parts of their university? Is there any doubt in your mind, Bobby?
Oh, and Senator, the other people who are writing grants, like the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, they paid 10% to 15% in indirect costs. We were paying 50, 60, 70%.
So, in fact, what you're doing is adding money to medical research.
We will be able to fund many, many, many more studies by eliminating that $9 billion, at least part of that $9 billion cost.
Okay. I want to ask you about LAHEAP. Are you familiar with this GAO report they did on LAHEAP?
I am not, Senator.
They found, they audited 7 states. They found 11,000 dead people getting LAHEAP grants. You familiar with that?
No, but that is pretty typical of many of the other programs that we're working with.
They found prisoners getting grants, didn't they? Were they using the grants to heat their jail cell? They found 1,000 federal employees getting the grants with federal salaries that greatly exceeded the income limits. They found some of those folks living in million-dollar homes. I got 18 seconds. Why do we allow highly processed foods in America?
That's a complicated question, but it's driven by profits, but to a food industry that is making money by poisoning American kids, and they don't do it abroad. They make the same products for Canada and for Europe that do not contain many of those chemicals.
You understand, Mr. Secretary, there's nothing you can do that's going to make many of my Democratic colleagues happy. You get that, don't you?
I do understand. I'm coming to understand that, Senator.
Yes. Thank you.
Federal inmates, people who are already serving sentences for crimes, snagging money that are supposed to go to low-income Americans and help them heat their homes. It's absurd. It's infuriating. Hardworking people across America are struggling to cover basic bills while prisoners are somehow cashing in. Where's the oversight? Who exactly is responsible for making this kind of theft? Make sure that that doesn't happen again. And it gets even worse. We're looking at over 1,000 federal employees, people who have already secure and high and well-paying governmental jobs, taking grants that they have absolutely no right to. Seriously, some of these folks are living in million-dollar mansions, all while pocketing cash that is meant for those barely scraping by. How does this even happen in our country? Who drops the ball this badly? And just how deep does this corruption run? Every dollar wrongly pocketed by those employees is a dollar stolen directly from families who genuinely need help. And it's outrageous, it's criminal, and it needs to stop right now. And hang on, because there's even more nonsense going on. Feeding Our Future was a nonprofit supposedly feeding hungry kids during the pandemic. And it turns out they pocketed it $250 million meant to feed children and instead bought themselves luxury cars, fancy homes, vacations abroad. It's beyond disgraceful. Kids were literally going hungry, and these fraudsters were living it up on your dime. Imagine how many families out there struggling, thinking help was on the way, only to have their hopes crushed by these greedy scam artists. In Mississippi, about $94 million designated for needy families somehow ended up with wealthy elites, including NFL legend Brett Favre, who got paid for speeches he never gave and used some of that money to build a volleyball stadium at his former university. You can't make this stuff up. Meanwhile, the families in Mississippi, these very people that these funds were supposed to help, were left out in the cold, literally wondering why the governmental programs designed to help them never, ever did. And then there's the HHS, again, dropping the ball this time, throwing around $22 billion in grants for migrant programs between 2020 and 2024 without proper oversight or any oversight at all. Thousands of minors disappeared from their records, funds went to questionable groups, and accountability was basically non-existent. This isn't just sloppy, it's completely dangerous. How can we trust a system that can't even track billions of dollars to ensure the safety and care of vulnerable children? This kind of outrageous behavior is exactly why people lose faith in our government. Senator Kennedy and RFK Jr. are shining a spotlight like they always do on these types of issues because it's your money being wasted while real needs go unmet. And when taxpayer money is wasted, when it's mismanaged or stolen, it weakens our entire country. We deserve transparency. We deserve accountability. We absolutely deserve better. And if this makes your blood boil like it does mine, it's time to do something about it. Hit like, subscribe, comment below, and drop your thoughts down below. Tell me what you think that needs to happen next. Share this video with friends, family, anyone else who's fed up with government corruption and waste, and let's hold these leaders accountable together. This is Andy with TrendingPolitics.com. Thanks for watching, and let's keep demanding better.